Got him.
Lock in.
Got him.
What is up, Watch fam? I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop.
My name is Michael. This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
More on them later.
Yep.
Today's episode is crazy, right? Timepiece Gentleman, Anthony Ferrer was finally arrested, and he's being charged with stealing $5 million from just, a large group of watch enthusiasts.
And you reminded me of something that makes it more than $5 million.
It's actually closer to 7.5 if we really think about it. And we'll explain the consequences of this indictment later on in the episode, and really how we think this ended up happening. Like, how did we get here? Was Anthony Ferrer from day one this this plotting criminal, or was it something else? So we're going to start off with kind of the story of how this all kind of happened in the beginning, how it kind of grew to fame, and how we met him. But we'll be brief there because I know you guys have heard that story a couple times. But really, towards the end of the episode, we get into the real meat of it, and how did this happen, and what's going to happen now. Okay, so we're going to tell the full story of the Timepiece Gentleman again really, really quickly. Okay?
Because we're finalizing it here.
Yes.
Possibly.
Well, until the next video when he's acquitted. Because the judge loves his YouTube videos. Hashtag subscribe, hashtag follow.
Hey, Anthony, before this case gets started, just quick wristwatch check here. The people prosecuting are like, oh my God.
I loved your day in the life stuff.
That stuff was incredible.
Okay, so long story short, Timepiece Gentleman came on the scene a couple of years ago, blew up on YouTube.
Right after we met him.
Exactly. This company was a reseller of pre-owned, kind of Rolex, like Rolex Patek. And, they started to really flex a lot of the money they were making. They were really, really flexing like crazy amounts of money.
Before we heard of them, before they had a popular YouTube channel, you got picked up in a McLaren?
Yeah,
I got picked up in an Audi.
I was in an R8.
Oh, you were in an R8.
You were in a Mercedes SLS.
In the airport, they're revving these cars.
Michael's like, it was literally two Ferraris.
I have no idea.
Well, the one was red, so that's a Ferrari.
Rocket
that's
ships.
how I know.
Yeah, which I found out you can't sell a Ferrari once you buy it.
Yeah, would you get off the list?
Yeah, you get off the list.
Yeah, you get sued.
It's tough life.
So they were really flexing a lot of the money. A lot of folks, myself included, Michael included, kind of not to say we're counting other people's money, but of course it's just a guy thing. You count other people's money sometimes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And you're like, I don't think that this adds up. You're spending $100,000 a month on food.
There were videos where
how much money do you need to make to spend $100,000?
Just mental math. There were videos if you watch them. The whole point of the video, which was an hour long, would be like, all right, guys, we need to make $400,000 today. And at the end of the video, he'd be like, all right, great, we did it. And I was like, there's no way you did that.
That's really hard to do.
That's a lot of money per month.
That's a lot of money to make a day.
Yeah.
Michael's like, I'd work for one day, then I'd quit. Long story short, everyone kind of suspected that there was some fraud going on. The story actually got a little bit the pot got thicker when it came out that Anthony was essentially a sex slave of sorts, a digital sex slave that was
the point where I was like,
himself out for dollars on the web.
In the video that we did with him, he compares himself to Mark Wahlberg 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
And all the reviews on his site said he looked like Mark Wahlberg.
It's like, oh, this is your thing.
Yeah.
This is your thing. You were laying little Easter eggs all over.
That was the part where I was like, wow, this is a full-on, you plotted everything out.
Totally.
Okay, I'll mention Mark Wahlberg.
Well, that's the thing. People that are doing things that they know that they're not supposed to be doing oftentimes will leave little Easter eggs as it gets their rocks off. That may have explained some of the money there for a while, but then it's also that can't explain all of this money.
That can't explain you picking us up in $500,000 of cars.
Exactly. And then allegations started coming out that there was a bit of a Ponzi scheme going on, but these were really just rumors. And the rumors were kind of based when he started to say he got robbed and watches got stolen, and people were like, did watches really get stolen?
That was the first, yeah.
It was all speculation. It really was, right? That was pure speculation.
That was also back when this was a 2-man business, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a 2-man business, right? Oh, you mean partners?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, because it was probably still 5 people or whatever.
Oh, sure, yeah. I think originally we'll talk about this at the end. I think originally this was not supposed to happen. I don't think there was a master plan. I think what happened is it turned into, wow, I'm really good at this. Wow, I have to fix this. Wow, I'm smarter than everyone, and now I'm evading the FBI. So I think what happened is he joined with someone else, a partner, who could source the watches. He was the marketing guy. He was the clouds in the dirt? Or vice
Gary
versa?
Vaynerchuk, yep.
Exactly. He was going to do that, and then it went off the rails. We'll discuss truly intentions after, but then he moved. I forget where he moved, and that's when his watches got stolen. People broke in. There was footage of all this stuff happening, and that was only the first piece of the story.
To L.A. Fast forward, he's living this crazy life in L.A. Ferraris, Lambos, Ducatis.
Uploading videos of him buying out the entirety of restoration hardware.
Yeah, $300,000, furniture bills. Just
like,
crazy.
I need all of it.
Where's this money coming from?
Sure.
And then the business essentially went belly up. You could no longer rob Peter to pay Paul, right, which was happening on his end. Yeah. And he released a apology video, which could also be labeled an admission of guilt video, a confession.
That was the craziest part, to be like, yes, I did that.
He just confessed online over like 2 videos that were like, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes each. I think they're still available online. You can go watch them, where he's like really stressed about, the fact that he's admitting to this crime, and he admitted, he described the crime in like pretty great detail.
Beautiful detail. The prosecutors were probably just like, oh my God.
Which we'll get to in a second, all about like what this means to the prosecution and means to the case. But, so he admitted to this, and then kind of like, then started another video series about how he was going to pay back the $5 million he stole.
And that was
there was like a countdown. It was like $5 million, $4,999,092. It's like, did you just make $8?
You made $8? The worst part was the next video he made after apologizing and saying this was my fault was like, I can't believe how many of you are like haters. Yeah. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. I admitted to this. And for that, I should be given credit because he literally put it on the people that blamed him. The people that were not forgiving him for the theft were culpable. Now, this is the mind of a psychopath. We're culpable, and that's not a clinical diagnosis. I don't actually know what psychopath actually means. It could be a sociopath. I
can hardly spell it.
The people that were not forgiving, he was saying, it is your fault that I can't earn money to pay these people back. You are just as liable for this debt as I am. Because while I stole it, first of all, it was an accident, essentially, at its core.
Which we'll get into exactly what he did.
And you know what? It's an accident, and I'm sorry, I just have no patience for this, right? Yeah. It's an accident, right? Well, why is it an accident? There's no intent. Well, there was intent. But can there be intent, or can there be consent, right? If there's alcohol involved, if there's an addiction involved. And then things essentially went dark. The video series stopped, and he kind of went on the run, like just no more posting, just kind of gone.
I will also say, I had a little shred of a doubt that was another PR thing.
Yeah, because at that point...
at a certain point, it was.
At that point, you don't know what way's up.
But at a certain point, I think he was like, oh man, this is going to explode online. Like, I'm going to go from 5 million to plus. Yeah. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make. So I think it was a PR thing, but not in the way that I thought. Where I thought there was no actual
I don't
danger.
know. I just think that he just loved the action of being the conversation.
Yeah.
I think he just loved being in the middle of the conversation. If it meant that was a confession and that confession was going to cost him time in jail, I think he was fine with that. I don't think you even think that far ahead. It's just like, I'm just so addicted to the drug that I'll do anything for it, including incriminate myself.
Wow.
Right? Like
okay, well, let's hit the FBI and then talk about that.
Because never hit the FBI.
I would never touch them.
That's a huge problem.
I walk by the FBI, I'm like,
you know what the FBI stands for?
Yes, I do. You know what I used to think? FBI. Actually, Federal Body Inspector.
Forever bothering the Italians.
I used to, when I was a kid, I thought FBI was Boston, CIA was California. And I was like, oh, they're the Boston police and CIA is the California police. Wow. I lived a life of crime as a kid. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. You, my friend, are a collector of websites and domains.
Yes, and I wouldn't be where I am without Squarespace. I have been a loyal Squarespace user from the beginning. If it weren't for Squarespace, I wouldn't even have had the company to start off with. I had no budget for a big, expensive web developer, so I got a Squarespace account, and I built on their templates and kind of went through and looked through all this wide variety, this array of beautiful, super professional, well-designed templates that I never could have paid someone to design. I just didn't have the money.
Yeah.
And not only were they beautiful, but they were so functional. Squarespace is literally the bedrock of the Theo and Harris business, right? Anyway, I adore Squarespace. I recommend that you not only use Squarespace if you're starting a business, but also, if you've already got a business and a website, take a look at Squarespace as well, because I feel very strongly that if you poke around through their website and their templates and explore the opportunities, even for just 20 minutes, that you'll find that that the opportunities at Squarespace for growth are so much larger than what your ceiling currently is. So go on over to Squarespace and take a look.
Yep, and Squarespace's Fluid Engine makes it easier than ever, even easier than when you first started, to drag and drop pictures to make the site look how you want. You can schedule blog posts in advance, and if you have a retail shop or you are hoping to grow a physical retail shop eventually, you could use Squarespace point of sale system to grow with you.
Amazing.
Yeah, so you can go to squarespace.com/Theo Harris to save 10% off your first order of a website or domain.
So he went dark, right? And then a couple of months later, just the other day, he's arrested, and that's it. It's a federal indictment, and he's looking at up to 20 years in prison. So, yeah.
This is also where more details came out about exactly what was happening. And this is also where I realized that I am a true watch nerd, because these news articles say, like, he was supposed to get a Rolex watch and he did not. And I'm like, okay, but what reference? What reference did this guy get instead?
Yeah.
So, anyways, what was happening was, one, wire fraud, which you can probably describe that a little better than I can.
Yeah, the more specific, like the way that the conduit for the wire fraud or the circumstances were. A couple of different ways he would do it, but essentially, like, you would send a watch in on consignment for him to sell, let's say like a $300,000 Richard Mille, for argument's sake, or a $200,000 Patek Philippe, and then he would...
Could be a $20,000 Rolex.
And he would just take a bunch of photos of that watch in different scenes, right? Kind of buying himself time to show you that, like, he's wearing it and trying to show it to clients, but he would sell it, like, that day or the next day.
And promise you a 5% commission, of course.
Right.
Up to...
But he wouldn't tell you that it's sold.
Of course.
He would just he'd have all these photos, so he'd continue to text you for like weeks that he was showing this watch off, and there's a big meeting I have, blah, 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 delaying, ghosting, coming back, delaying. Meanwhile, he cashed out the $300,000 or $200,000 weeks ago. The watch is gone. God knows where that watch is.
Huge personality.
Right now, the watch is actually, when it's going to be, reported stolen. So now even the buyer is screwed too. Like, everyone's screwed here, right? And then, of course, because the transactions were through wire, right, it became wire fraud.
Right.
But that, that's it. It's kind of an easy scam. And any dealer could do it. Like,
yeah,
what are you going to do?
Yeah, right.
What are you going to do?
Well,
the only reason he's going to jail is because he did it to so many people, and he confessed to it online, which is kind of where this conversation goes. Like, if he didn't admit to this publicly,
sure,
I don't know. I have no real reason to believe that he would have been indicted so quickly, if at all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's an easy case. Anybody would be like, okay, do it.
Yeah,
we're going to win.
It's a score.
He said it in this video that I have on my computer right now.
They won't even go to trial. Watches are unimportant to the time. They can't speed, slow, or stop it, and our phones tell it better. But, as vessels for memories, they know few rivals. So as soon as this happened, obviously we're a little bit late to the news, naturally, as always. I literally hopped on The Zero, our podcast community, with Peter Aziz, an attorney, my attorney, and friend, obviously, great guy.
Who saved my butt from a landlord scheme.
That's
and
right.
He probably doesn't even know.
Yeah, exactly.
I just used his name.
So long story short, he kind of explained some of the consequences here, some of the ramifications of his actions, and I could kind of break it down fairly quickly. And number one, there's a whole conversation about his record. Anthony Ferrer has a really long record, and it's all going to be considered.
Of course.
All of his prior arrests are going to be considered. All of any kind of character judgment is going to be considered.
Sure.
The voices of the victims will be considered. And I think that his utter disregard for really, like, abiding within the border of society, like his utter disregard for other people, right? There was one guy that said, like, he stole his, like, savings and he considered killing himself. Like, that matters, right? Like, when Bernie Madoff did what he did, people died, and a lot of people are like, oh, I stole from rich people. That's not a cool defense either. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? You stole from people. You had no disregard for their human dignity, and that's it. I think you ought to go to jail. Will he get 20 years? Peter doesn't think so. We talked about it again on The Zero. If you want to go listen to that episode, he can explain this far better than I can. Go subscribe down below. It's great. There's T&H store credit involved, so it's a free subscription essentially over the year. And we do podcasts every week and live chats, and we do posts. It's really, really awesome. It's really great community engagement. It's actually hard to keep up with sometimes. But back to the point. Go sign up for The Zero. But back to the point. Peter explained it far better than I could, because he is in fact an attorney.
Yes.
But the other problem is here, and we haven't talked about this. We're kind of doing this on the fly. Not only did he steal $5 million from people,
sure,
But when you steal $5 million from people, whether it's like, even though it's stolen, it's still income.
Oh.
So you owe taxes on the $5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, which is probably about 50%. I mean, between federal and state tax, 40-something% in tax.
Wow.
So you
I
owe
did
that money
not
to the
think
government.
about
So if he took that $5 million and gambled it all away, let's say that $5 million is gone, right? It's gone. You not only still owe the $5 million out to the world in restitution, you also owe like 40% of that. So essentially, $2 million plus fees to the federal government.
And he's definitely not paying his accountant, so you can pay your accounting fees.
His life is like, listen,
Wow.
no one's life is ever over, like,
course,
until
of course.
it's over, right? It ain't over till it's over, but his life is over.
7.4,999,000.
Yeah.
50 cents.
Yeah.
50 cents
Yeah,
at a time.
and you can't, like, and they'll garnish your wage forever.
Oh, yeah.
He's screwed. He's
Wow.
he's screwed.
I did not even think of that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
It's
So-
crazy, and you can't. No, bankruptcy has no impact. Like, you have to pay this at some point or another. You have to pay this. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
Unless you,
insane.
yeah. I mean, again, unless you, I don't know. I mean, I know that some people have evaded their restitution by, living elsewhere and hiding income. But I don't know. I mean, are you gonna go do this again? Like, your name is shot, right? So when people Google you, you're shot. When people, even if they Google you and you have a new name, like, what about reverse Google search? Like, I don't know. I really have a hard time believing that this guy will ever actually be okay again.
Right.
I really do not think that will ever happen.
Well, I think that's the real finale of the discussion. I don't think he was ever okay. Like, I think this was, you got out, you tried to rebuild your life, you felt like you were onto something, and, like, because of everything in your life, all of your demons, you ended up crashing more than you've ever had before.
Totally.
Like, it just got, because one of the things that these articles talk about is the fact that people that were owed money, he would just send them a watch. Like, if I owed you $300,000,
I don't have
the money back. Here's another $300,000 watch. So now he's losing money because he couldn't sell that watch, trying to pay the debts back to another person.
It's just an utter disaster. This is not a criminal mastermind. This is a con artist. This is a con artist that just really blew up online. Like, that's it. And you know what? Like, so far as, like, a lot of the dealers are concerned, the dealers that have come out and talked to him, again.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, well, naturally, right?
Of course.
But the reality is, like, I know these dealers too, and they've never done this, but they commit fraud all the time. Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
It's such a joke. Like,
Well,
this
it's like-
holier than thou, uppity dealers that are like, oh, this happened, this is a product of social media. It's like, I don't know, you steal in person all the time.
Yeah, you do it in person. It's
But
just
you
not
think
as
it's
public.
right. You think it's okay? Like, get the out of here too. Again, like, that's one of the really big reasons that you guys know. Like, probably the reason, kind of. Well, I never got into, like, the big watch game. I was just terrified of it. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I have a tolerance for risk. Yeah. But I don't have a tolerance for fraud. I don't think that I think that it's such a highly technical space, and people are so deviant in it that I never wanted to participate in it.
We talked about the likelihood of, you're having dinner with your family, and then you get a call that's like, hey, that watch that you sold for $400,000, that's stolen. So we need $400,000.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
you're like, whoa,
what
wow.
do I do now?
Yeah, exactly.
So now what happens to all the people, not only the ones that, not only the people whose watches were stolen, right? But what about the people that bought a stolen watch? Like, that watch will get confiscated if it ever goes into service.
Yeah.
And then what's the ethical dilemma? Like, if you own a stolen watch and you know it's a stolen watch, like, do you ever service it? Like, what do you do? Like, I don't know. What is the answer? Like, I know it's easy to say that you would, but you wired someone $300,000, and now you've got a $300,000 stolen watch. Do you really want to give it up?
Then that essentially doubles the amount that people are out from this
to do
thing.
The right thing? I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying I would or wouldn't. I'm just saying, like, that's a really interesting ethical dilemma.
There is someone sitting there.
And a practical dilemma.
Yeah, there's someone sitting there with a $300,000 watch on being like, wow, this is...
I paid for this, but it was stolen.
Like, it is my watch, technically, but it's not my watch, technically.
Yeah, it's not my watch.
And I'm out $300,000.
Yeah, I agree. Because you're not going to collect $7.5 million from Anthony Ferris. It's just never going to happen.
Right.
The restitution will make his life miserable forever.
Sure.
Right? Because anytime you try to make money, you'll have a really hard time, and anything you make, you'll get taken away, right? Not all of it, of course, but a lot of it. You'll never live well again.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but
It's horribly sad. I think, because I was thinking about this a lot today, thinking about Anthony specifically, because we met him before any of this happened, or before any of stuff that we know happened. There could have been stuff prior. Also, real quick, what are you wearing? I see diamonds on that.
This is my Take No Mom. This is the watch I bought for my non-existent daughter.
Wow, that's sick.
That's
cool. That's
for
right.
a while.
Yeah, I like that.
one.
Anyways, I was thinking about this for a while, because we sat with this man having sushi, and at the time he was like starry-eyed, and he was so. It seems so a little nuts, but genuine. Of like, dude, I want to get you. I want to get all the big YouTubers. Like, I think we should all do roundtable discussions about the watch world, about this, about that. And now I look at that, and all of this stuff is terrible, but it's horribly sad looking at this life of this man. Seeing someone that I think had an idea, and then with ego, like whatever got tied up.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like you ran yourself into the absolute ground,
Yeah.
got stuck, tried to get out of it, but not in like a fair way, in like more devious ways, dug yourself even deeper, like had to show the world what you wanted to be when you weren't there yet, and just exploded.
Yeah.
It's the saddest thing. It's terrible, but it's horribly sad. Like this for everybody is just the saddest thing.
It is. It's totally depressing, and I agree with you. I don't think it started off this way, but it found itself here, and he clearly had no moral compass to guide himself out of whatever small problem. Instead, it got larger and larger and larger. I mean, and that's kind of it. I mean, I guess if there's any consolation in the world for Anthony Ferrer, it's that Bernie Madoff said that once he went to jail, it was actually quite peaceful. He no longer had to worry about the stress of the world caving in on him. It was just, I don't know, I'm going to, hang out and just talk to people and kind of just relax.
Yeah, like I got caught.
Yeah, maybe find God. I don't know.
He already did. That was a big thing with him, I think.
Was it?
Yeah.
See, I don't remember that. See? Maybe re-find God.
Yeah, okay. I'll just text him again.
I don't know. But that's it. If you guys like this episode, then go ahead and like it and subscribe to our channel. If you'd like more content from Theo and Harris, join our private community over at The Zero, where we post podcasts every week. Michael's on some, Sam's on some, industry leaders are on others. We're bringing back Liquor Run over there as well. Gonna have a blast.
Nice.
I'd love to see you on over there. And if you do join, go ahead and shoot me a DM. I'd love to talk watches. Whether you're a Submariner guy or a 50 Fathoms guy or a Day-Date guy or an FP Journe guy, you've got to just take a step back and appreciate this history here. This isn't stuff you're going to find in a showcase. This is not mass-produced stuff, which is beautiful in its own right. I mean, this is treasure hunting.